When I opened my grandmother's oven for the last time, the smell of Sunday roast escaped like a ghost from the past. That aroma of roast meat, golden potatoes, and rich gravy, which for decades gathered our Australian family together, is now almost a relic. Fast food has taken over our tables, taking with it not just flavors but entire memories. I'm glad to have you here with me. If I've caught your attention, please give a like and comment your city plus postcode so I can find you in the comments. I want to see how far our stories reach. In Australia during the 80s and 90s, we didn't have Uber Eats or Deliveroo. What we had were mothers and grandmothers who transformed simple ingredients into meals that warmed not just the stomach, but the soul. Our weekly calendars were marked by specific dishes that signaled, today is Tuesday, so it's shepherd's pie day. We grew up in a time when making fairy bread was a birthday ritual, where bubble and squeak meant nothing went to waste, where the aroma of Anzac biscuits baking was a reminder of our history. Today, these foods are disappearing, replaced by the shine of disposable packaging and the convenience of delivery. Traditional Australian cooking was born out of necessity. With few ingredients available in the early years of colonization and later with the restrictions from 2 world wars, our grandmothers learned to turn the simple into the extraordinary. Take shepherd's pie, for example. This perfect combination of slowly cooked minced meat with onions, topped with a generous layer of mashed potato, wasn't just a meal. It was home economics on a plate. It used cheaper cuts of meat, seasonal vegetables, and created something that could feed an entire family and still leave leftovers for the next day. I remember walking home from school on cold winter afternoons and inhaling that unmistakable smell. The first spoonful breaking through the golden crust of the mash to find the moist and warm filling was like a food-shaped hug. In your place, would you speak up right away or wait for proof? Comment, follow, or espero. In the old Australian kitchens, nothing was wasted. Sunday was the day of the famous roast, and Monday inevitably brought the bubble and squeak, that delightful mix of leftovers pressed in the frying pan until it formed a crispy crust. Bubble and squeak got its curious name from the sound it made in the pan while cooking, bubble from the bubbling and squeak from the sizzling. Cabbage, potato, carrot, any leftover from Sunday's roast found its way into this mixture. The magic was in the crispy crust that formed on the outside while the interior remained moist and flavorsome. This was true sustainability, decades before the word became fashionable. Our grandmothers knew that food should not be thrown away. It should be reinvented. Homemade rissoles were another constant presence. Simple pastry enveloping a filling of minced meat or vegetables, then fried until golden brown. Served hot, often wrapped in paper towel to absorb the excess oil. They were the perfect snacks to take to school or for family picnics. If this gave you goosebumps, comment Sabor so I know you felt it. And who doesn't remember spag bowl the Australian way? Nothing like the original Italian recipe. Ours was made with canned tomato sauce, minced meat, and sometimes grated carrot to hide vegetables from the children. Served with grated cheese straight from the packet. The Australian spag bowl was the epitome of a quick dinner on weeknights when everyone was tired. It was homemade food without frills, devoid of any pretension of Italian authenticity, yet guaranteed to leave empty plates at the end of the meal. It was what mothers prepared while helping with homework, answering the phone, and mediating fights between siblings. And how could we forget Pavlova? This dessert with a crunchy meringue shell and soft interior, topped with fresh cream and fruits, sparked territorial disputes with New Zealand, both countries claiming its invention. But for us kids, the only contest that mattered was for the last piece. Every Australian family had their own version, and each grandmother swore that her recipe was the original. Some secrets were shared in whispers. Add a spoonful of vinegar to make the meringue more stable, or let it cool in the switched-off oven to prevent cracks. Who do you think is behind the best pavlova you've ever had? A, your mom, or B, your grandma? Write A or B and tell me why. Pavlova was a must-have at Christmas and birthdays, eliciting gasps of admiration when it graced the table. The Sunday roast deserves a chapter of its own in the culinary history of Australia. It was more than just a meal. It was an institution, a weekly ritual as reliable as the rising sun. While today we schedule appointments over the phone, Sundays used to come with a set commitment, gathering around the roast. The preparation started early. The meat, usually lamb, but sometimes pork or beef, would go into the oven for hours, filling the entire house with its aroma. The potatoes, those golden, crispy masterpieces, were roasted in the meat's own fat. Pumpkin, carrots, parsnips, everything caramelized slowly, soaking up the flavors of the roast. And the sauce, oh, the sauce, made from the very fat of the meat, with flour, stock, and herbs. Thick, flavorful, perfect for covering every inch of the plate. No ready-made sauces in pouches. It was homemade. It was liquid love. At the table, there was silence for the first few minutes, a universal sign that the food was too good to be interrupted by conversation. Afterwards, the stories flowed, laughter erupted, and discussions about politics, which inevitably ended when dessert arrived to calm the spirits. Speaking of desserts, the golden syrup dumplings were the definition of comfort in sweet form. Simple dumplings cooked in a rich syrup of golden syrup. The secret lay in the syrup, thick, bubbling, made with that typically Australian-British ingredient known as golden syrup. Served with cream or vanilla ice cream, they had the ability to turn the chilliest day into a warm memory. The smell of this dessert bubbling on the stove was like an irresistible call. No matter where you were in the house, that sweet aroma would find you, pulling you by the hand to the kitchen. Breathe with me. Would you go for pavlova or opt for golden syrup dumplings? Comment stay or go. Fairy bread, on the other hand, was simplicity at its most magical. White bread with butter and topped with colorful sprinkles, that's all. No children's birthday party was complete without it. Cut into triangles, these little colorful slices were pure joy in 3 bites. There's something profoundly Australian about the ability to transform the simple into something special, without complication or fuss. Fairy bread is proof that we don't need expensive ingredients or complex techniques to create unforgettable memories. Steamed pudding was the kind of dessert that required patience, both in its making and in the waiting. This dense, moist pudding, often made with dried fruits and steamed for hours, represented an act of love that began in the morning to be enjoyed at night. The technique was passed down through generations. The secret lay in the perfect ratio of flour, fat, and liquid, but also in the meticulous process. The mixture placed in a greased mold, covered with parchment paper tied with string, and then steamed for hours. The whole kitchen would be filled with the scent of these spices. When it was finally served, it came with a warm sauce, homemade custard, caramel sauce, or rum. Each mouthful was dense and rich, an explosion of concentrated flavors that seemed to absorb the entire family's history. It was food that demanded a commitment. No rushing, no shortcuts. It was the opposite of our current relationship with food, where everything needs to be instant, convenient, and photo-ready before it's even tasted. The steamed pudding taught us that some things in life are worth the wait, worthy of attention, deserving of the time needed to fully develop. Anzac biscuits carry a story that transcends taste. Originating during the First World War, these oat, coconut, and golden syrup biscuits were created to send to Australian and New Zealand soldiers at the front. The name comes from Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. The recipe was carefully crafted. No eggs, which were scarce during the war, with ingredients that wouldn't spoil easily and that provided energy. They were hard biscuits designed to survive the long sea journey to the battlefields in Europe. Every bite of an Anzac biscuit is a direct connection to our national history. It reminds us of the women who stayed at home, contributing to the war effort in the ways they could. It honors those who departed, many never to return. Today, we primarily prepare these biscuits on Anzac Day, 25th April. But in the past, they were a staple in school lunchboxes and afternoon teas. Crispy, golden, with that distinctive taste of golden syrup and coconut that seems to awaken patriotism even in the most indifferent of Australians. There are foods that nourish the body, and there are foods that nourish national identity. Anzac biscuits do both. Today, these foods are disappearing from our tables. The Sunday roast has been replaced by takeaway Thai food. Bubble and squeak has given way to microwave frozen meals. Children are more familiar with the McDonald's logo than the taste of homemade Anzac biscuits. It's not just our palate that is changing. It's our relationship with time, with home, with traditions. The dining table, once the center of the Australian home, now competes with screens, notifications, and the constant rush of modern life. Have you ever trusted processed food and regretted it? No names. What did you learn? Your comment could save another family. The grandmothers who knew exactly how much salt to add without needing to measure are fading away. Their recipe books, those with grease stains, margin notes, and secrets never revealed, are being replaced by YouTube tutorials and Instagram posts. For our Black community, protection is life. What advice would you give to those families about preserving their culinary traditions? Write with care. This is a space for support. Every piece of fairy bread not made, every pavlova replaced by shop-bought sweets is a piece of our history that is lost. It's not about empty nostalgia or resisting the new. It's about remembering that food carries memory, identity, and belonging. It wasn't about the shepherd's pie, it was about sitting together and sharing more than meals, sharing who we are. Some of these traditional Australian recipes may seem too simple, even outdated for contemporary taste, but they tell stories of adaptation, survival, and transforming limitations into culinary creativity. If you enjoy real stories that champion family and dignity, subscribe. Every week there's one that touches us. What we're losing isn't just flavors, but the transmission of knowledge between generations. The moment a grandmother teaches her granddaughter how to feel for the right consistency of the dough. The family stories told while waiting for the roast to cook. The pride in a child's eyes when their first Anzac biscuit comes out of the oven golden and perfect. Want to know more? How can we preserve these traditional recipes and adapt them for modern life without losing their essence? Write, Want Part 3. Thank you for staying with us. Leave a heart and tag someone who still cooks these traditional Australian recipes or who needs to rediscover them.